The private helicopter descended gracefully onto the exclusive helipad of Azure Haven, a luxurious resort nestled on a secluded island surrounded by turquoise waters and pristine white sands. The blades of the helicopter sent fine grains of sand swirling into the air, shimmering under the golden rays of the setting sun. From the sleek black chopper stepped Liam Harrington, the billionaire real estate mogul and CEO of Harrington Enterprises, a man whose name was synonymous with power and success. Dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit and polished leather shoes, Liam exuded confidence and control. His sharp gaze swept over the paradise before him, rows of overwater villas, swaying palm trees, and crystal-clear waves lapping gently against the shore. But to Liam, this wasn't a vacation. It was just another battlefield in his relentless pursuit of success. A multi-billion-dollar deal awaited his signature, and he had no time to indulge in the beauty of the island. A senior staff member of the resort approached him with a polite bow. "Welcome to Azure Haven, Mr. Harrington. Your private villa and conference room have been prepared as per your request." Liam gave a curt nod, his mind already racing with numbers and strategies. "Good. Make sure everything is in order for tomorrow's meeting. I don't want any surprises." As Liam strode toward the exclusive VIP area, his assistant hurried behind him, double-checking the schedule. But Liam barely paid attention. His focus was singular, the deal. Success was everything, and he had sacrificed more than most to achieve it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the resort, a luxury cruise boat docked at the private pier. Clara Monroe, a single mother and talented interior designer, stepped off with her twin daughters, Ella and Mia, their small hands clutching hers tightly. The girls' eyes sparkled with excitement as they took in the breathtaking scenery. "Mommy, look, it's like a fairy tale," Ella exclaimed, pointing toward the floating villas. Clara smiled, though her heart felt heavy. She had worked tirelessly for the past 7 years, saving every penny to give her daughters this vacation. It wasn't just a trip. It was her way of making up for the life they had never had, a life with a complete family. As the girls ran ahead, giggling with joy, Clara's gaze drifted to the happy couples and families around her. A pang of sadness crept into her chest. 7 years ago, she had dreamed of a life like this, too. But the man she had once loved, the father of her daughters, had vanished without a word. Taking a deep breath, Clara pushed the memories aside. This was her time with her girls, and she wouldn't let anything or anyone ruin it. Little did she know, fate had other plans. The sun had long set over Azure Haven, and the resort was now bathed in the soft glow of lanterns lining the pathways. The gentle sound of waves crashing against the shore created a serene atmosphere, but Liam Harrington was anything but relaxed. After a grueling day of meetings and travel, all he wanted was to retreat to his villa, review his notes for tomorrow's deal, and get some much-needed rest. The resort staff handed him a keycard with a polite smile. "Your villa is ready, Mr. Harrington. Please, enjoy your stay." Liam nodded absent-mindedly, his mind already preoccupied with the details of the upcoming negotiation. He strode down the winding path toward his villa, the sound of his polished shoes crunching against the gravel. The villa was tucked away in a secluded corner of the resort, offering privacy and luxury, exactly what he expected. Sliding the keycard into the lock, Liam pushed the door open and stepped inside. The villa was dimly lit with the warm glow of bedside lamps casting a cozy ambiance. The faint scent of vanilla lingered in the air, and the soft hum of the air conditioner filled the silence. He loosened his tie and tossed his briefcase onto the couch, ready to unwind. But then he froze. In the corner of the room, a woman stood, her back turned to him as she tucked 2 small children into bed. She was humming softly, her voice soothing and melodic. For a moment, Liam thought he had entered the wrong villa, but before he could step back, the woman turned around. Their eyes met, and time seemed to stop. "Liam?" she whispered, her voice a mix of shock and disbelief. It was Clara Monroe, the woman he had loved and left behind 7 years ago, the woman he had tried to forget but never truly could. Clara? Liam's voice was barely audible, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. His gaze shifted to the two small girls lying in the bed. They were identical, with soft brown curls and wide hazel eyes that looked eerily familiar. His chest tightened as a realization began to dawn on him. "What are you doing here?" Clara demanded, her voice rising as she stepped closer. Her expression shifted from shock to anger, her hands clenched into fists. "How dare you walk in here like this?" I think there's been a mistake," Liam stammered, holding up the keycard. "The staff must have given me the wrong room." Clara's eyes narrowed, her anger simmering just beneath the surface. "A mistake? That's what you call this? You disappear for 7 years, and now you just show up in my life like nothing happened?" Liam's throat went dry. He wanted to explain, to say something, anything, but his attention was drawn back to the twins. They were now sitting up in bed, rubbing their sleepy eyes. One of them, Ella, looked at him curiously. "Mommy, who's that man?" she asked, her voice soft and innocent. Clara's face hardened, and she turned to her daughters with a forced smile. "It's no one, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." But Liam couldn't tear his eyes away from the girls. The resemblance was undeniable. The same hazel eyes, the same dimpled smile. His mind raced with questions, but one thought overpowered them all. Could they be mine? I didn't know," Liam finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Clara, are they—" "Don't," Clara cut him off sharply, her voice trembling with emotion. "You don't get to ask that. You don't get to walk back into my life and pretend to care." The tension in the room was suffocating. Liam took a step back, his heart pounding in his chest. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I'll leave." He turned and walked out of the villa, the door clicking shut behind him. But as he stood outside in the cool night air, his mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Guilt, shock, regret, and above all, a gnawing sense of responsibility. Inside the villa, Claire leaned against the door, her hands shaking. She had spent years building a life for her daughters, shielding them from the pain of their father's absence. And now, in the span of a few minutes, everything she had worked so hard to protect felt like it was unraveling. The night was quiet, but Liam Harrington couldn't sleep. He sat on the balcony of his villa, staring out at the moonlit ocean. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was soothing, but his mind was anything but calm. The image of Clara Monroe and the two little girls haunted him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had just come face to face with the consequences of a decision he had made 7 years ago. A decision that had changed both their lives forever. As he leaned back in his chair, memories began to flood his mind, pulling him back to a time when everything had been different. Liam was not yet the billionaire real estate mogul he was today. Back then, he was a young, ambitious entrepreneur trying to make a name for himself in the competitive world of real estate development. He had just landed his first major project, a luxury apartment complex in the heart of the city, and was attending a networking event to celebrate the deal. That was the night he met Clara Monroe. Clara was an up-and-coming interior designer, known for her creativity and passion for her work. She had been invited to the event by a mutual friend, and the moment Liam saw her, he was captivated. She wasn't like the other people in the room, all dressed in stiff suits and talking about money and power. Clara was warm, genuine, and full of life. Her laughter was infectious, and her eyes sparkled with a mix of curiosity and determination. They spent the entire evening talking, and by the end of the night, Liam knew he wanted to see her again. Over the next few months, they became inseparable. Clara brought a sense of balance to Liam's life, reminding him that there was more to the world than work and success. She believed in his dreams, but also encouraged him to slow down and enjoy the little moments. For the first time in his life, Liam felt like he had found someone who truly understood him. But as Liam's career began to take off, the cracks in their relationship started to show. His work demanded more and more of his time, and he often found himself canceling plans with Clara to attend meetings or travel for business. Clara tried to be supportive, But it was clear that Liam's priorities were shifting. One night, after a particularly heated argument, Liam made a promise he couldn't keep. "I just need a little more time, Clara," he said, holding her hands tightly. "Once this project is done, I'll have more freedom. We'll take that trip to Italy you've always wanted. I'll make it up to you, I swear." Clara nodded, though her eyes were filled with doubt. She wanted to believe him, but deep down, she knew that Liam's ambition would always come first. A few weeks later, Liam received an offer he couldn't refuse, a chance to work on a groundbreaking project overseas. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, but it meant leaving Clara behind. He told himself it was only temporary, that he would come back for her once the project was complete. But as the months turned into years, the distance between them grew. Clara tried to reach out, sending him emails and leaving voicemails, but Liam was always too busy to respond. Eventually, the calls stopped, and Liam convinced himself that it was for the best. He told himself that Clara deserved someone who could give her the time and attention she needed, someone who wasn't consumed by work. What Liam didn't know was that shortly after he left, Clara discovered she was pregnant. Clara was devastated when Liam stopped responding to her messages, but she didn't have time to dwell on her heartbreak. She had 2 lives growing inside her, and she was determined to give them the best life possible. She worked tirelessly, taking on freelance design projects while preparing for the arrival of her twins. When Ella and Mia were born, Clara's world changed forever. The girls became her everything, and she poured all her love and energy into raising them. But it wasn't easy. There were nights when she cried herself to sleep, wondering how she would make ends meet. There were moments when she felt overwhelmed and alone, wishing Liam were there to share the burden. But Clara was strong. She refused to let her daughters feel the absence of their father. She became both mother and father to them, teaching them to be kind, resilient, and brave. Over time, she built a stable life for her little family, finding joy in the small moments like watching the girls paint pictures together or hearing their laughter echo through the house. Still, there were times when Clara couldn't help but wonder what might have been. Did Liam ever think about her? Did he know about the twins? Did he even care? Liam's chest tightened as the memories faded, leaving him with a deep sense of regret. He had been so focused on building his empire that he had ignored the one thing that truly mattered, Clara. And now, it seemed, he had missed out on more than just her. He had missed out on 7 years of his daughters' lives. For the first time in a long time, Liam felt lost. He didn't know how to fix what he had broken, but one thing was clear: he couldn't walk away this time. Not again. The morning sun rose over Azure Haven, casting a golden glow across the resort. The tranquil beauty of the island was a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Clara Monroe's mind. She had barely slept after the unexpected encounter with Liam Harrington the night before. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, shocked, confused, and full of questions. Questions she wasn't ready to answer. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, watching her daughters, Ella and Mia, as they slept peacefully. She brushed a strand of hair from Ella's face, her heart aching with a mix of love and fear. She had worked so hard to protect them from the pain of their father's absence, and now, in the span of a single night, everything felt like it was unraveling. He had spent the night pacing his villa, replaying the encounter over and over in his mind. The resemblance between the twins and himself was undeniable. He couldn't ignore the possibility that they were his daughters. But what could he do now? How could he even begin to make up for 7 years of absence? Determined to get answers, Liam decided to confront Clara again. But as he stepped out of his villa, he was greeted by a sight that made his stomach drop. A group of resort guests whispering and pointing in his direction. "Isn't that Liam Harrington?" one woman murmured to her companion. "I heard he was seen leaving a woman's villa last night," the other replied, her voice dripping with curiosity. "And she has kids. Do you think they're his?" Liam's jaw tightened. He had spent years building a reputation as a shrewd businessman, someone who kept his personal life out of the spotlight. But now, It seemed that his private life was about to become very public. By midday, the whispers had turned into full-blown gossip. A photo of Liam standing outside Clara's villa had surfaced online, posted by a nosy guest who had recognized him. The caption, "Billionaire Liam Harrington's secret family, spotted at Azure Haven with a mystery woman and 2 kids." The post quickly went viral, catching the attention of tabloids and social media users alike. Speculation ran wild, with some accusing Liam of hiding a family and others praising him for finally stepping up. Clara, unaware of the growing storm, was enjoying breakfast with Ella and Mia at the resort's outdoor cafe. The girls were giggling over their pancakes, blissfully unaware of the stares and whispers from nearby tables. But Clara's peace was short-lived. Her phone buzzed with a notification, and when she opened it, her heart sank. The photo of Liam outside her villa stared back at her, accompanied by hundreds of comments. Some were sympathetic, but most were invasive and cruel. Clara's hands trembled as she scrolled through the messages, her worst fears coming true. "Ami, what's wrong?" Mia asked, her small voice filled with concern. Clara forced a smile, quickly locking her phone. "Nothing, sweetheart. Finish your pancakes." But inside, she was panicking. She had spent years keeping her daughters out of the spotlight, shielding them from the chaos of Liam's world. And now, in a matter of hours, their privacy had been shattered. Liam, too, had seen the photo. His phone was flooded with calls and messages from business partners, PR teams, and even his assistant, all demanding an explanation. The timing couldn't have been worse. The billion-dollar deal he was negotiating relied heavily on his reputation, and any hint of scandal could jeopardize everything. But for the first time in his life, Liam didn't care about the deal. His focus was on Clara and the twins. He knew he had to act quickly to protect them from the media frenzy. Liam made his way to the cafe, his presence commanding attention as he approached Clara's table. She looked up, her expression a mix of anger and fear. "We need to talk," Liam said, his voice low but firm. Clara shook her head, her eyes darting to the girls. "Not here, not in front of them." "Then let's go somewhere private," Liam insisted. "This is getting out of control." Reluctantly, Clara agreed. She asked the resort staff to watch the girls for a while, then followed Liam to a quiet corner of the resort. As soon as they were alone, she turned to him, her anger boiling over. "This is exactly why I didn't want you in their lives," Clara hissed, her voice trembling. "One night, and now the whole world is talking about us. Do you have any idea what this could do to them?" Liam ran a hand through his hair, guilt etched across his face. "I didn't mean for this to happen, Clara. I didn't even know." "Exactly," Clara interrupted. "You didn't know because you left. You made your choice, Liam, and now I have to clean up the mess." Liam's chest tightened at her words. She was right. He had made his choice all those years ago, and now the consequences were staring him in the face. But he wasn't the same man he had been back then. He couldn't walk away this time. "I'm not leaving," Liam said firmly. "Not again. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." Clara stared at him, her eyes filled with a mix of anger, pain, and something else, something she wasn't ready to admit. Without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving Liam standing alone. The sun was high in the sky, casting a warm glow over Azure Haven. But for Clara Monroe, the day felt anything but bright. She had spent the morning trying to shield her daughters from the growing media frenzy. The whispers, the stares, the invasive questions, it was all too much. Clara had already decided they would leave the resort by the end of the day. She couldn't risk her daughters being dragged into the chaos of Liam Harrington's world. But fate had other plans. As Clara packed their belongings in the villa, she heard a faint voice call out from the other room. "Mommy!" It was Ella, her voice weak and trembling. Clara rushed to her side and found her daughter lying on the couch, her face pale and her forehead burning with fever. "Ella, sweetheart, what's wrong?" Clara asked, panic rising in her chest. "I don't feel good. Ella murmured, her small body trembling. Clara's heart raced. She quickly checked Ella's temperature. It was dangerously high. Without wasting a second, she scooped her daughter into her arms and called for help. Resort staff arrived promptly and offered to take them to the on-site medical center. As Clara carried Ella out of the villa, she nearly collided with Liam, who had been pacing nearby, trying to figure out how to approach her again. The moment he saw Clara's panicked expression and Ella's limp form in her arms, his entire demeanor changed. "What happened?" Liam asked, his voice filled with concern. "She's burning up," Clara said, her voice shaking. "I need to get her to the medical center." "I'll help," Liam said without hesitation. He reached out, gently taking Ella from Clara's arms. "Let me carry her." Clara hesitated for a moment, but the urgency of the situation left her no choice. She nodded, and together they rushed to the medical center. At the medical center, the doctor assured them that Ella's condition was likely due to heat exhaustion and dehydration, but she would need to rest and be monitored closely. Clara sat by Ella's bedside, holding her hand tightly, while Liam stood nearby, his expression a mix of worry and guilt. "Is she going to be okay?" Liam asked the doctor, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "She'll be fine with rest and fluids," the doctor replied, "but she needs to stay calm and cool for the next 24 hours. As the doctor left, Clara turned to Liam, her defenses momentarily lowered. "Thank you for helping," she said quietly. Liam shook his head. You don't need to thank me. She's my daughter too, isn't she?" Clara's breath caught in her throat. She had spent years preparing for this moment, but now that it was here, she didn't know what to say. She looked at Liam, his face etched with genuine concern, and for the first time, she saw a glimpse of the man she had fallen in love with all those years ago. "Yes," Clara finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're your daughters." Liam's eyes widened, and he sank into the chair beside her. "I knew it," he said, his voice trembling. "The moment I saw them, I knew. Clara, I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Clara replied, her tone sharp again. "What matters is what you do now. Words won't fix the years you've missed." Liam nodded, her words hitting him like a punch to the gut. "You're right," he said. "I can't change the past, but I can be here now. For them, for you." Clara didn't respond. She wasn't ready to trust him yet, but she couldn't deny that his presence had made a difference today. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope just a little that Liam might truly want to be part of their lives. Liam stayed by Ella's side all night, refusing to leave the medical center. He fetched water, adjusted her blankets, and even read her a story when she woke up briefly in the middle of the night. Clara watched from the corner of the room, her emotions a whirlwind of anger, sadness, and something she hadn't felt in a long time. The next morning, Ella's fever had broken, and she was sitting up in bed, her cheeks rosy again. "Mommy, I feel better," she said with a small smile. Clara hugged her tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so glad, sweetheart." Liam knelt beside the bed, his voice gentle. "Hey, Ella, I'm glad you're feeling better too." Ella looked at him curiously. "Are you Mummy's friend?" Liam hesitated, glancing at Clara for guidance. Clara gave him a small nod, and he turned back to Ella with a soft smile. "I'm someone who cares about you very much." Ella tilted her head, studying him for a moment. Then, to Liam's surprise, she reached out and took his hand. "Thank you for helping me." Liam's heart swelled, and he squeezed her tiny hand gently. "Always." As they left the medical center, Clara couldn't help but notice the change in Liam. He wasn't the same man who had walked out of her life 7 years ago. He was still flawed, still carrying the weight of his past mistakes, but there was something different about him now. He seemed genuine. But Clara wasn't ready to forgive him. Not yet. She had spent too many years building a life for her daughters without him, and she wasn't about to let him waltz back in and disrupt everything. Still, as she watched him hold Ella's hand and carry Mia on his shoulders, She couldn't deny that he was trying. And maybe, just maybe, he deserved a chance to prove himself. The next morning, the resort was buzzing with activity. Guests lounged by the pool, children played on the beach, and the staff moved about with their usual efficiency. But for Clara Monroe, the world felt like it was closing in. The photo of Liam outside her villa had gone viral, and the media frenzy was only growing. Reporters had begun calling the resort, and Clara knew it was only a matter of time before they showed up in person. She sat on the balcony of her villa, watching her daughters play in the garden below. Ella and Mia were laughing, their carefree giggles a stark contrast to the turmoil in Clara's heart. She had spent years protecting them from the chaos of Liam's world, and now it felt like all her efforts had been for nothing. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. When she opened it, she found Liam Harrington standing there, his expression serious. "We need to talk," he said. Clara crossed her arms, her defenses immediately rising. "What now, Liam? Haven't you done enough?" "I know you're angry," Liam said, his voice calm but firm. "And you have every right to be. But this isn't just about us anymore. The media is circling, and if we don't get ahead of this, it's going to get worse. For you, for the girls." Clara hesitated. She hated to admit it, but he was right. The longer they stayed silent, the more the rumors would spiral out of control. "What are you suggesting?" she asked cautiously. "I'll handle it," Liam said. "I'll make a statement, take responsibility, and make it clear that you and the girls are off limits. I'll do whatever it takes to protect you." Clara studied him for a moment, searching for any sign of insincerity, but all she saw was determination. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope that Liam might actually mean what he said. "Fine," she said finally, "but this doesn't mean I trust you, not yet." Liam nodded. "I understand. Just trust me to handle this." Later that afternoon, Liam stood on the resort's main terrace facing a small crowd of reporters who had gathered after hearing rumors of a statement. Cameras flashed, microphones were thrust forward, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Clara watched from a distance, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea what Liam was going to say, but she hoped he wouldn't make things worse. Liam took a deep breath, his usual confidence faltering for a moment as he looked out at the sea of faces. Then he began to speak. "Thank you all for coming," he said, his voice steady. "I know there's been a lot of speculation about my personal life over the past few days, and I want to set the record straight." The crowd leaned in, eager for the scoop. "7 years ago, I made a mistake," Liam continued. "I walked away from someone I cared about deeply, someone who deserved better than what I gave her. At the time, I thought I was doing the right thing by focusing on my career, but in reality, I was running away from my responsibilities." He paused, his gaze dropping for a moment before meeting the cameras again. "What I didn't know was that I left behind more than just a broken heart. I left behind 2 beautiful daughters. Daughters I only just met a few days ago." The reporters erupted into a flurry of questions, but Liam held up a hand to silence them. "I'm not here to make excuses," he said firmly. "I'm here to take responsibility. Clara Monroe is an incredible woman who has raised our daughters on her own, and I owe her more than I can ever repay. I know I can't change the past, but I'm committed to being a part of their lives moving forward if they'll have me." Clara's breath caught in her throat as she listened. She hadn't expected Liam to be so honest, so vulnerable. For the first time, she saw a man who was willing to put his pride aside and admit his mistakes. "I also want to make one thing very clear," Liam added, his tone growing serious. "Clara and the girls are not public figures. They deserve privacy and respect, and I will do everything in my power to ensure they get it. I ask that you respect their boundaries and leave them out of the spotlight." With that, Liam stepped back, signaling the end of the statement. The reporters shouted more questions, but he ignored them, walking away with a sense of finality. Back at the villa, Clara sat on the couch, her emotions swirling. She had watched the press conference on her phone, and she couldn't deny that Liam's words had moved her. He had taken full responsibility, something she never thought he would do. But was it enough? When Liam returned, he found Clara sitting alone, her arms wrapped around herself. He hesitated at the door, unsure if he was welcome. "Come in," Clara said softly, surprising him. Liam sat down across from her, his expression cautious. "I meant every word I said out there," he told her. "I know I've hurt you, Clara, and I know it's going to take time to earn your trust, but I'm not going anywhere. Not this time." Clara looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of anger, sadness, and something else, something she wasn't ready to name. "You've said a lot of things, Liam. Now it's time to prove it." "I will," Liam promised, "whatever it takes." For the first time, Clara allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, Liam was telling the truth. But she wasn't ready to let her guard down completely. Not yet. The days following Liam Harrington's public confession were quieter than Clara had expected. The media frenzy had died down, thanks to Liam's firm statement and the resort's strict privacy policies. For the first time in days, Clara felt like she could breathe again. But the real challenge was just beginning. Figuring out how to navigate this new reality with Liam in their lives. Clara had spent years building a stable, predictable life for her daughters. She had been their rock, their protector, and their only parent. Letting Liam into that carefully constructed world felt like a risk she wasn't sure she was ready to take. But as much as she wanted to keep her walls up, she couldn't ignore the way Ella and Mia had started to warm up to him. Liam, for his part, was determined to prove himself. He spent every moment he could with the girls, learning about their favorite games, their quirks, and their dreams. He discovered that Ella loved to draw, her tiny hands always clutching a crayon or pencil, while Mia was a budding adventurer, constantly exploring and asking questions about the world around her. One afternoon, Liam surprised the girls with a small art set for Ella and a pair of binoculars for Mia. Their faces lit up with joy, and for the first time, Clara saw a glimpse of what life could be like if Liam truly committed to being a father. "Thank you, Mr. Liam," Mia said, bouncing on her toes as she tested out the binoculars. "You can just call me Liam," he said with a smile. "Or whatever you want." Ella looked up from her new sketchbook, her big eyes studying him carefully. "Can we call you Daddy?" she asked softly. The question hit Liam like a freight train. He glanced at Clara, who froze, unsure of how to respond. Liam knelt down to Ella's level, his voice gentle. "You can call me whatever feels right to you, sweetheart. I'd be honored if you called me Daddy, but only if you're ready." Ella nodded slowly, a shy smile spreading across her face. "Okay, Daddy." Mia chimed in, giggling. "Daddy Liam." Clara's heart ached as she watched the scene unfold. She had spent so long being everything for her daughters, and now she was watching them form a bond with the man who had once walked away. It was bittersweet, equal parts joy and fear. That evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Clara found herself sitting on the balcony with Liam. The air was warm, the sound of the ocean filling the silence between them. Liam had been careful not to push her, giving her space while focusing on the girls. But tonight, Clara felt the need to speak. "They're getting attached to you," she said quietly, staring out at the waves. "I know," Liam replied, his voice equally soft, "and I don't take that lightly. I know how much they mean to you, Clara. I'm not going to let them down." Clara turned to face him, her eyes filled with a mix of emotions. "You say that now, but what happens when things get hard? What happens when your work pulls you away again? I can't let them go through that, Liam. I won't." Liam leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I'm not the same man I was 7 years ago, Clara. Back then, I thought success was the only thing that mattered, but now I see what I've missed. I see what I've lost, and I'm not going to make the same mistake again." Clara wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that he had changed, that he was capable of being the father her daughters deserved. But trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. "I need time," she said finally. "Time to see if you're really serious about this, about them, about us." Liam nodded, his gaze steady. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Over the next few days, Liam continued to show up not just for the girls, but for Clara as well. He helped with bedtime routines, carried Mia on his shoulders during walks, and even joined Ella for a drawing session, despite his complete lack of artistic talent. The girls adored him, and slowly, Clara found herself softening. One evening, as they sat together watching the girls play on the beach, Clara turned to Liam. "You're good with them," she admitted reluctantly. Liam smiled, his eyes never leaving the twins. "They make it easy. They're amazing, Clara. You've done an incredible job raising them." Clara felt a lump form in her throat. She had spent so many years doing it all on her own, never hearing those words from anyone. "Thank you," she said softly. Liam looked at her, his expression serious. "I mean it. I know I don't deserve it, but I want to be part of this, part of their lives, and part of yours, if you'll let me." Clara's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't ready to forgive him completely, but for the first time she allowed herself to consider the possibility of a future where Liam was more than just a visitor in their lives. "We'll see," she said, her voice cautious but not cold. "One step at a time." Liam nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. One step at a time. As the sun set over Azure Haven, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Clara felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't a promise, and it wasn't a guarantee, but it was a start, and for now that was enough. The final days of their stay at Azure Haven were filled with moments that Clara never thought she'd experience. For the first time, she saw her daughters laughing and playing with their father, a man they had only just met but who was quickly becoming a part of their world. It was surreal, and while Clara still held on to her reservations, she couldn't deny the joy it brought her to see Ella and Mia so happy. Liam, for his part, was doing everything he could to prove himself. He had put his phone away, ignoring work calls and emails, something Clara knew must have been difficult for him, but he never once complained. Instead, he spent his days with the girls, building sandcastles on the beach, teaching them how to swim, and even letting them bury him in the sand, much to their delight. Clara watched from a distance, her heart torn between hope and fear. She wanted to believe that Liam had changed, that he was here to stay, but the scars of the past were still fresh, and she wasn't ready to let her guard down completely. One evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Liam found Clara sitting on the beach, her feet buried in the cool sand as she stared out at the ocean. He approached quietly, not wanting to disturb her, but she turned when she heard his footsteps. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, sitting down beside her. Clara shook her head. "Too much on my mind." Liam nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I get it. I've been thinking a lot too." They sat in silence for a moment, the sound of the waves filling the space between them. Finally, Liam spoke. "I know I've hurt you, Clara," he said, his voice low, "and I know I can't undo the past. But I want you to know that I'm not the same man I was back then. I've spent so many years chasing success, thinking it would make me happy, but it didn't. Not really. And now, being here with you and the girls, it's the first time I've felt like I'm where I'm supposed to be." Clara turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of insincerity, but all she saw was a man who looked genuinely remorseful, a man who was trying to make amends. "I want to believe you," she said softly, "but it's not that simple, Liam. You left, you made a choice, and I had to pick up the pieces. I had to be everything for them, and I can't just forget that." "I don't expect you to," Liam replied. "I know I have a lot to prove and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I hope you'll give me the chance to show you that I'm serious." Clara sighed, her emotions warring within her. She wanted to protect herself and her daughters, but she also couldn't ignore the effort Liam was making. "We'll see," she said finally. "But this isn't just about me. It's about them. If you hurt them, Liam, I don't think I could forgive you." I won't, Liam said firmly. I promise. The next day, Liam suggested they spend their last full day at the resort together as a family. Clara hesitated at first, but the excitement on Ella and Mia's faces convinced her to agree. They spent the morning on the beach, playing games and collecting seashells, and in the afternoon, they went on a boat ride to explore the nearby islands. For the first time in years, Clara felt a sense of peace. Watching Liam interact with the girls, seeing the way he made them laugh and how he listened to their endless stories, she began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he really had changed. As the sun began to set, they returned to the beach for one last walk. Ella and Mia ran ahead, their laughter echoing in the warm evening air. Clara and Liam followed behind, walking side by side in comfortable silence. "They're amazing," Liam said, his voice filled with awe. "You've done such an incredible job with them, Clara." Clara smiled, a hint of pride in her expression. "They're my whole world." "They're mine too," Liam said softly. "I know I've missed so much, but I want to be there for them now, for everything. School plays, birthdays, scraped knees, all of it." Clara glanced at him, her heart softening despite herself. "It's not going to be easy, Liam. They've been through a lot, and so have I. If you're serious about this, you need to be all in." "I am," Liam said without hesitation. "I'm all in." That night, as they sat together on the balcony of the villa, Clara felt a shift in her heart. She wasn't ready to forgive Liam completely, but she was willing to take a step forward. For the sake of her daughters, and maybe even for herself. "I'm not saying I trust you yet," she said, her voice steady. "But I'm willing to give you a chance, for them." Liam's face lit up with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Clara. I won't let you down, I promise." As the stars twinkled above them, Clara allowed herself to hope. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was a start, and sometimes that was enough. The weeks turned into months, and the fragile foundation that Clara and Liam had built began to solidify. Liam had proven himself in ways Clara never thought possible. He was there for every school event, every scraped knee, and every bedtime story. He had become a constant in Ella and Mia's lives, and slowly, Clara found herself letting her guard down. But even as things improved, Clara knew there was one final step they needed to take, a conversation about their future. She couldn't keep living in limbo, unsure of where they stood. If Liam was serious about being part of their lives, she needed to know what that meant, not just for the girls, but for her as well. One quiet evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Clara found Liam sitting on the porch, staring up at the stars. She hesitated for a moment before stepping outside, wrapping a light sweater around her shoulders. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. Liam looked up and smiled. "Of course not." She sat down beside him, the cool night air wrapping around them. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the silence between them comfortable but heavy with unspoken words. "I've been thinking," Clara began, her voice steady but soft, "about everything, about us." Liam turned to her, his expression serious, and Clara took a deep breath. "You've been amazing with the girls. They adore you, and I can see how much you care about them. But this isn't just about them, Liam. It's about us too. If we're going to do this, if you're going to be part of their lives, then we need to figure out what that looks like. I can't keep living in this in-between space." Liam nodded, his gaze never leaving hers. "You're right. And I've been thinking about that too. Clara, I don't just want to be their father, I want to be here for you too. I want us to be a family, not just for the girls, but because I still love you." Clara's breath caught in her throat. She had spent so many years convincing herself that she didn't need Liam, that she was better off without him. But hearing those words, spoken with such sincerity, made her heart ache in a way she hadn't expected. "Liam," she began, but he held up a hand, stopping her. "Let me finish," he said. "I know I hurt you. I know I walked away when you needed me most, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. I want to build a life with you, Clara. A real life. No more running, no more excuses, just us." Clara looked at him, her emotions swirling. She wanted to believe him, to trust that he meant every word, but the fear of being hurt again still lingered. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've spent so long protecting myself, protecting the girls. Letting you in? It's terrifying." "I know," Liam said gently, "and I don't expect you to make a decision right now. But I'm not going to stop trying, Clara. I'll spend the rest of my life proving to you that I'm serious about this." The next weekend, Liam suggested they take the girls on a picnic at the park. Clara hesitated at first, but the excitement on Ella and Mia's faces convinced her to agree. They packed a basket with sandwiches, fruit, and snacks and headed to a quiet spot by the lake. The day was perfect. The girls ran around, chasing butterflies and playing tag, while Liam and Clara sat on a blanket, watching them with smiles on their faces. For the first time in years, Clara felt a sense of peace, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, things could work out. As the sun began to set, Liam pulled out a small box from his pocket. Clara's heart skipped a beat as he opened it, revealing a simple but elegant ring. "Clara," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I know I've made mistakes. I know I have a lot to make up for. But I love you. I've always loved you. And I want to spend the rest of my life making things right, not just for the girls, but for you. Will you marry me?" Clara stared at him, her heart pounding. She glanced at Ella and Mia, who were watching from a distance, their faces lit up with excitement. She thought about everything they had been through, the pain, the struggles, and the moments of joy. And in that moment, she realized that she was ready to take a leap of faith. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling but sure. "Yes, I'll marry you." The girls squealed with delight, running over to hug them both. Liam slipped the ring onto Clara's finger, his eyes shining with happiness. As they walked back to the car, hand in hand, Clara felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. Their journey hadn't been easy, and there were still challenges ahead, but for the first time, she believed that they could face them together. They weren't just two people trying to make things work, they were a family, and that was all that mattered.